My name is Legina, and I was infected when I was 25 years old.
My name's John. I was infected when I was 24 years old.
My name is Natalie. I was affected when I was 18 years old.
My name is Warren, and I was 29 years old when I was affected with the AIDS virus.
My name is Samantha, and I was affected at first.
My cousin died of AIDS about 6 months ago. I have a friend with AIDS, and I see him living with it day by day.
To live with HIV, I think, would be very devastating. Just one sexual relationship can mess up your entire life.
The 3 years that I worked in Hollywood, I guest starred on 25 primetime shows and 5 feature films and about 100 music videos.
I wanted to be an astronaut.
I always wanted someone with me.
I wanted to have a friend. I wanted to have a male friend.
I would get married and have 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl. And that's what I planned to do.
You know, I wanted to be loved by someone.
I had like a million goals I wanted to accomplish. You know, I wanted to do so much.
I was just longing for relationship.
I was actually a beauty queen. This was a long time ago. And he was a race car driver.
Before I was married, I did, drugs like cocaine and stuff like that, but even while I was married.
I don't know where I ever heard the word queer the first time, but began wondering if that's what I was.
I was kind of a good girl.
Met someone, found out he was gay, he invited me over. That kind of led me into the gay lifestyle.
He was flashy, he was cocky, he was sexy.
I'm not saying that was the reason why my wife and I split up. It was basically because of a conflict entrance, and we just could not communicate.
Went into my first gay bar at 17, and from there began a very destructive lifestyle.
After about 6 years of knowing him and then dating him for a while, he asked me to marry him, and I wasn't ready, so I said no.
Samantha's mom was married before.
Once we did split up, I think, it probably took me once you get over the hurt and the pain, and then once you realize you're not going to get back together.
I was told he was a drug user.
I was drinking and doing drugs and being very promiscuous, sleeping around. Had a couple of venereal diseases.
I was coming in contact with a lot of nice-looking, very clean-cut, educated, healthy-looking women, which I thought was healthy at the time also.
And he asked a second time, and I still wasn't ready, so I said no. But on his third proposal, I felt like I was ready to take that step.
In about 1983, I met a gentleman. And in 1984, we had a backyard ceremony. Committed our lives to each other. I thought, okay, that's going to make me happy. That's what I really want.
I got out there in the world again. So I was still using drugs and going to parties and picking up ladies and that forth.
It was a very, very romantic proposal.
While we were together in that relationship of 8 years, we brought people home into the relationship.
I was just fulfilling my sexual needs or my needs of my flesh at that time when I was working. And just, if I go to a club and I pick up someone, and then, if that person is willing and I'm willing, for that particular one night, then it's fine. But there was no obligation there.
I wanted to please him. And so I saw that giving myself to him physically was like a gift. It was to consummate our engagement.
I wanted affection, thinking that if I was sexual with this person, maybe I would have some type of affection.
Right after the proposal and right after we made love, he immediately scared me with his response. He became very angry, verbally abusive, and he withdrew from me emotionally.
I told him we needed to not ever do that again, and it happened, and lots of people wish they could go back and change an instant in their life, but it shouldn't have happened, and it did, and so we know exactly where the situation occurred.
He was supposed to come visit me out in California where I was living at the time and spend Thanksgiving with me, and we talked the day before Thanksgiving, and he never showed up, and he never called.
I don't know who infected me, and I can't say that I can look at one individual that I had sex with that looked like they had the virus. and say that, okay, that person is the one.
I got a phone call from a sports agent who knew that Tim and I were involved, and he called me and said, "What is going on? I heard Tim is in the hospital dying from AIDS."
Oof. I found out very oddly. We applied for life insurance, thinking nothing. I was at work, and I had a phone call from my partner saying our insurance policies came back saying non-insurable. And I, for some reason, I just knew. And I said to him, I said, "We must be HIV positive."
I received a letter from the medical facility which I took the exam at. And the letter read, "You have a potentially serious condition of a personal nature." Now, with the lifestyle I was leading after my marriage, I'm not stupid or naive or dumb. I knew I was taking a big risk.
I went to my gynecologist and I said, "Please test me for AIDS." And he said, "Oh, women don't get AIDS, and you're the last person to get AIDS. That's a waste of your time and money." And I said, "Well, please, just for my peace of mind, can I have a test?" And my test came back negative.
Man, I sure enough screwed up this time.
He was sick for probably 2 years.
And then she met JR, our son, and they had no idea that she'd been infected by our first husband. And when Sam was born, they found out that that they were infected, both of them. It was a shock to the family.
I got AIDS by my mother.
They called me on Monday. A friend of mine was going to go see him and called and said she was going by, and she came upstairs and said, "By the way, Gary died an hour ago."
Oh, God. That hurts so bad. And I kept saying, "You're lying, you're a liar." "Yeah, I know I don't." She said yes.
No one knew to tell me then to get a second test, but the rumors continued about Tim, and so I went to get a second test. And this time, my gynecologist called me, and he was weeping on the telephone, and he said, "Legina, are you sitting down?" And as soon as I knew that I had AIDS. And from that moment, my life completely changed. All of my hopes and dreams were dashed, were crushed.
If I had AIDS, I'd probably be really, really depressed.
It would be very traumatic for me.
Oh, I would probably think about committing suicide. I'd want to die quickly.
When it hurts so bad is when the first couple months after, you run, emotionally, physically, keep your mind going. You go to work, you go to school, you do anything just to keep your mind from thinking it. And when it finally hits you, you said, "Oh God, I'm not going to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm not going to do what I was supposed to do. Am I going to finish school? Is anyone going to ever love me?"
I can remember thinking, I can't believe I'm not going to live to be 30 years old.
My mom died when I was 3, and my dad died when I was 7.
I felt dirty, contaminated, poisonous.
I can remember driving in my car thinking, I have this time bomb. I used to imagine this time bomb, and when was it going to explode?
What I feel is sad, and sometimes I just want to cry.
I was so ashamed of myself, and I developed a real hatred for myself.
When I told my mother, because I thought she was the second to the closest person I can talk to. And she told me, "I don't love you no more because I can't believe you did this to me," and she was disappointed.
It was devastating. It still is. And, you know, usually the kids bury their parents, not the other way around.
Sometimes I get mad because I want to be like the other kids, but I always can't be like other kids.
I would have these horrible thoughts of just wanting to kill myself.
Being alone with this disease, it makes you feel like you're nobody anymore.
You got to deal with a lot of issues. As you know, it's bad enough to be dealing with other problems with your health, then you got to deal with people around you also. Some people just don't care to be around you.
I feel like people didn't see Natalie. People didn't see me. They saw the disease. They called me as, well, you know, the girl with the HIV, the girl who's dealing with this. They didn't see me. I wanted them to see Natalie. I wanted them to see me.
It hurts. It definitely hurts. You know, it just crushes your whole entire month, not your day, your month.
How would I respond? I think I would respond in a calm way, you know, dealing with my past and stuff like that, and knowing that there's a lot of treatment out there for me, and I can probably be cured. Not cured, but, you know, treated where I can live a long time.
I get really angry when in the media AIDS is being called a manageable illness. Excuse me, do you call constant diarrhea, wearing diapers, throwing up, catheters in your arm, almost dying, having your brain swell, having all these different diseases manageable? In whose eyes? They're not living with AIDS.
I take 12 pills a day.
I take about 26 medicines per day.
Almost my whole day revolves around surviving.
The meds make me feel sick.
I hate it.
This is a protease inhibitor. I have to take 8 of these a day. I can't take my protease inhibitors within 2 hours of taking my Ativan to make me go to sleep, and I take a stomach acid reducer because the protease inhibitors upset my stomach, and certain drugs can't be absorbed because of that. So it is a very frustrating to be a prisoner to this disease.
I wasn't getting a lot of nutrition, so I got this tube called a button, and it's in my stomach, and I get fed every night.
There are also some other really uncomfortable side effects from the protease inhibitors. And, you know, besides the life-threatening ones to my heart, because I'm now at risk for heart disease because of the side effects from the protease inhibitors, there is the nausea and vomiting, the almost uncontrollable diarrhea, and a lot of the time I have to wear diapers.
The mother instinct in us, I would rather go through it myself than to see her suffer. It's just hard. I can't describe it. I mean, this is a loved one that you care about and you want to just do for, and you're helpless.
I have to wake up and take this fiber drink and then wait about an hour and a half when my stomach's already bloated and full from this fiber, eat my breakfast. But before I do that, I have to give myself insulin shot. And then after breakfast, I have to take, you know, some of my 35 pills a day. And then I begin to feel nauseous, so I usually have to just sit quietly or lay down, or I throw them up, and then I start the whole process over again. But this cocktail of drugs doesn't work for everybody. It only works for 50 to 75% of the people that even try it. And then it has so many bad side effects that a lot of people have to abandon taking it.
And past May, I was in the hospital for a month.
Her immune system is so taxed that whatever blows on her just takes over her body.
People thinking because you got AIDS or you have the virus, they don't want to be around you. Thank you. I'm glad you want to be around me, especially if you got a cold and you coughing, because my immune system is too weak to fight off that little cold that you got.
I have survived 9 life-threatening opportunistic infections. Opportunistic infections are illnesses that people with AIDS get because their immune system is so suppressed. I've survived 4 bouts of pneumocystis carinii pneumonia, CMV, cytomegalovirus, immunologic thrombocytopenia. I had a PICC line catheter in my arms and several swells. One of the AIDS drugs I was taking, IV treatments 2 hours every day, pancreatitis, which medication swelled to 7 times weight of 89 pounds, became very, very pathetic. To about 140 brain swell. I don't even remember lipodystrophy, much of it except for the pain, and I almost died.
I worry about my TCL count every time I go get my doctor's appointment. If they go down, I'm worried. Just a little bit. I don't want them to move.
It's not just one disease. That's just a condition. AIDS is a condition that suppresses your immune system to the point where you are open for any bacteria, funguses, viruses, cancer. I had cervical cancer twice. See, if you get AIDS, more than likely you've been exposed to a lot of other sexually transmitted diseases.
Because every time you have sex with one person, you've had sex with every person that other person have had.
People often think that they're immune to the HIV virus, that they're not going to get infected.
I don't care if you practice safe sex. They are not guaranteed to keep you from getting the virus. They're not absolutely guaranteed. All it takes is that one time, though.
I was infected in that one exposure.
Currently, I'm not having sex, but when I start or whatever, I'm just very, very careful. It's okay if, you know, you're really deeply in love with that person. You really think that this is the person you can spend the rest of your life with.
You know what? I've known this person for 6 months. They're not infected with the HIV virus. They would tell me if they're infected with the HIV virus. The reality is, a lot of people out there today are infected with the HIV virus and they don't even know it.
Anyone can be a risky partner.
It doesn't discriminate.
There's no discrimination on it whatsoever.
It's your choice.
So if you want to be like me, never knowing, every time you get sick, the slightest little feeling, the slightest little cold, you get scared. You get very scared. Try living like that. That's what it's going to take. That's what I want you to do. I dare you.
Wow. I try to avoid the thought of thinking that somebody might actually have AIDS. I mean, I don't really want to believe that it could be with anybody that I would be with.
If you want to take the risk of getting HIV infected and possibly ending your life, if not ending your life, dramatically changing the rest of your life, meaning that you may have to take pills the rest of your life, you may have to do injections, you may be sickly the rest of your life. If you choose to do that, if you choose to be sexually active, that is a consequence that you could endure.
If you're having a very highly sexual life, living on, you're having a lot of sex and using drugs, you need to be worried. And if you're doing it with people out there that's doing the same thing you're doing, you better be worried. You know, it's just there's no ifs and buts about it. You got it, pal. So you might as well go and get tested, and so you start taking care of yourself.
HIV is a consequence of your actions.
There is no such thing as safe sex unless you are married and you know that your partner has been faithful and you know that your partner does not have any sexually transmitted disease.
Sex is such a small part of a relationship. It's a great thing that God created for a man and wife, but it is such a small part of the relationship. If you're basing your whole relationship on sex, then you really have no relationship.
When you're married, God wants you to express your love freely with each other. I mean, He created us to love. He created us to desire sex. But He created us to have those privileges, so to speak, within the covenant of marriage. And that's the only place it's going to be safe.
That's why God gave Adam Eve, so he would not be alone. But God wanted His way to be, He wanted sex to be portrayed in a good way.
If you are fortunate enough to escape a sexually transmitted disease, let alone AIDS, which will kill you eventually, you have not escaped the damage that you've done to your heart and your soul. Because each time you have sex with a person who is not your husband or wife, you are giving that person a piece of your heart, a piece of your soul even. And with each time you do that, more and more of your heart is being given away.
I did everything I thought I wanted. We had a ceremony in our backyard, and I still wasn't happy. There was still an emptiness inside.
Your heart can heal, but there will always be scars.
Abstinence is one of the greatest things in the world, because that means that when I'm married and my husband and I are together, that's going to be a union and a unity that God has ordained. I don't need any man to tell me he loves me by touching me. You know, if he loves me, then he is going to marry me and wait until we're married to do that.
There is still hope, because from this day, at this very moment, you can make a decision to remain sexually abstinent until marriage. But unfortunately, there are going to be some of you who have contracted AIDS and may not even know it. And that's why I suggest getting an AIDS test and then getting a second one to confirm it 6 months later, as I did, because I tested negative first and I was really positive. And if you do have AIDS, if you know now that you are living with AIDS, then let me encourage you that you still can have hope and a future, and that God does have a plan for you, just like He did me. It may be very hard to believe, but just trust with all your heart that God can still give you a life of meaning and purpose. He's done it for me. He's allowed me to live so many more years than I ever dreamed, more years than all the doctors said I would live. He's given me a wonderful husband, and He's given me the opportunity to share this story in hopes that no one else will have to live with this awful disease.
Healing is not necessarily a physical healing. If God took me home tomorrow, He's healed my life. You know, I didn't die lost in homosexuality. I didn't die apart from God. I gave my life back to the Lord, and I'm walking and living for the Lord. So I have found healing in my life.
He's the only person that I don't have to worry about being afraid of me. He's the one that I can, when I'm worried, I'm scared, you know, he's the one that I call in times of trouble. You know, when it's like all hope is gone. You know, he supplies all my energy that I need to get through a day, every day.
God brought me out of homosexuality, HIV infected, and then brought someone in my life that would accept that, marry me, and go on to have a family, knowing that I could go home tomorrow and be with the Lord.
I'm not afraid of that, but because I know it'd be eternal peace. I'll be with the Lord.
When I get to heaven, I'm going to see my parents.
I know that no matter what comes my way, He is going to be there with me. And that's whether I am walking through the valley of the shadow of death with IVs hooked up, breathing my last breath, or if it's when I'm having a wonderful day and I actually feel pretty good and I just want to run through a meadow full of flowers. He's with me.
He has sustained us. He has helped us.
I have people ask me a lot, well, how can I know Jesus? How can I give my life to Jesus? And I just tell them, well, just do like I did. I just spoke to Him like He was sitting right next to me. And I said, Jesus, I need you. And I need you to take the mess that I've made of my life and make good with it, because I don't know what to do anymore. And I admitted that what I had done was sin and that it was disobedience to God.
I've been living my life according to my standards, which were pretty high, but they weren't God's standards. And that me comparing myself to other people and thinking, oh, I'm a good girl, well, according to the world's standards, yes, but God's standards, I'd fallen short.
You're not a perfect person. You know that you make mistakes.
I am a sinner too, and I need forgiveness from God.
Those imperfections cause us to have to pay a penalty for our lives.
The Bible even says that no one is without sin. Everybody's made mistakes, and anybody who says that they haven't sinned is actually a liar.
And the only way a person could take away that that punishment is by accepting Jesus Christ as the only sacrifice that is able to take all our sins onto himself and to purify us from all the unrighteousness, all the imperfections that we have.
We can try to be good, we can try to love one another and be groovy to each other, but the only way that we're really going to get to God is through Jesus Christ.
Because Jesus died on the cross for you, your sins have been forgiven.
The only answer is Jesus Christ, who died, rose again, to restore my relationship with God.
I mean, he died on the cross for us. What greater gift of love could he have given?
If you ask Jesus Christ to come into your heart, to truly come into your heart and take control of your life, if you give your life over to him, if you trust in him for everything, that he will bring change to your life.
You've heard me talk about how Jesus has made a huge difference in my life, and I really hope that you will choose to make Jesus the Lord of your life.